Is it? Is the door open to the Nutmeg Tavern? Are people pouring in? Yes. Welcome into the Nutmeg Tavern. We are live. And we're going to be talking about yummy butter. Butter, probably one of the best things to cook with ever invented. I see strange stuff happening in the chat with this new leaderboard thing. Don't even ask me what's going on with that. I don't know anything about it. All I know is it looks weird. We're going to be talking about butter because Lauren chose.
Dad wondered
you're
what
talking about butter.
And the video this week on Sunday that's coming out is about bread. So I'm like, well, what would you pair?
That's right.
Is
Since we're going to be talking about bread, we have to talk about butter, even though I didn't talk about butter in the episode. And I didn't even try out my bread with butter because, of course, you can't know. Right?
All you taste is the delicious
butter. Right, all you taste
butter.
is the butter. So if you're going to really taste bread, you got to taste it all by itself, even though it's kind of like bread by itself is like,
It's the only way to know how the texture turn out, how
exactly
the base taste.
And if it's got the right saltiness and all that good stuff. So it turns out butter is incredibly important to 18th century cooking. It's important to agriculture in the time period. It's just important. It's just butter is incredibly important, right? So today, and especially, 20 and 30 years ago or 40 years ago, when people beat up on butter and said, butter's bad for you, et cetera, et cetera, we all know now that they were wrong. Butter's good and it's good for you. Okay, let's just get that out of the way. But it's really important in 18th century cookery because they didn't have as many cooking oils to work with as we do. So we have all sorts of cooking oils, good, bad, indifferent, doesn't matter. We have many choices. Whether we choose them or not, it was like corn oil and olive oil and, just like avocado oil. I mean, just oil after oil that we could choose to cook with. So many of them from vegetables and et cetera, as well as animal fats. But in the 18th century, you're going to be working with suet or lard. They don't even talk about using lard that often, and butter. Those are the big mainstays. You'll occasionally see references to salad oil or to sweet oil or to olive oil. They generally didn't call it olive oil, but that's what it was. Sweet oil, salad oil was generally something like an olive oil. But the vast majority of recipes that you're going to see, they're going to talk about butter. It's going to be in the portion of the cookbook at the beginning where they talk about ingredients and marketing, going to the market. So butter is super important. So there are like whole chapters and almost books set aside talking about the dairy and cheeses and then butter specifically. It's that important and that kind of an interesting topic to them. So what's going on with butter and why, how were they making it? So today I have no idea how they make butter today. I mean, they have a butter factory, I'm sure, someplace. That's where all that butter comes from. I don't know, probably New Jersey. They make it all out of some weird chemical. No, let's hope that's not true for butter. It is for margarine, but for not for butter. So I've got this whole section of. I was going to bring the book here, and I forgot. William Ellis's Housewife's Family Companion, one of the books that we sell, a good portion of it. It's got butter in multiple places of the book, but there's like a 20-page section of it all about butter, not butter and cheese, just butter. And I was kind of fascinated because he really starts off talking about the quality of making good butter, and he stands firmly on the concept that good butter comes from just the right plants, right? So I mean, I would have thought I would go to some place like good butter comes from the right cows, right? And that is never mentioned in his entire writing section. Basically, I mean, my interpretation of that would be everybody's using the same cows in 18th century England, or they really aren't differentiated in cattle breeds like we breed cattle today. Apparently, probably most of that is really happening more in the 19th century. And in the 18th century, it's like, yeah, we all have the same cows. And as we look at pictures later on, we're going to kind of see that all the cows look similar. They're not all the same color. They all sort of have the same kind of short horn thing going on with them. And they're probably all a similar mongrel cow breed, I guess. I'm not a cow expert for the 18th century, so if you have special 18th century cow knowledge, go ahead, jump in there and all over that one. But that would be my interpretation. He really doesn't say anything about good cows, bad cows for the milk and for making butter, but he does mention specifically the right kinds of grasses or things that you're going to feed them. There is no great difference between some Vale dairy farms and some Chiltern dairy farms. I don't know how you pronounce that one. In the Vales, they seldom feed their horned cattle on any but natural grass and its hay, because most of their land is unfit for clover, raygrass, Saint Foin, or Saint Soin, I don't know, trefoil, lucerne, and turnips, etc. So he kind of talks about this as natural grasses and artificial grasses, and he means things that you're actually growing just to feed the cows in a greenery situation. But then he goes on to kind of talk about how depending on the soil and the types of grasses that are growing, really you get better or worse milk / butter out of it. Let's see. A cow can but have enough for a bite and plenty of water with it. She will milk well, which is what cannot be said of the upland meadow. But where their low wet ground produces rushy or coarse, flashy grasses, it causes a cow to give poor watery milk, and that a pale rankish butter. For it is a true maxim that as the feed is, so is the milk, butter, and the cheese. So he's all about, you want good butter, you want good milk, you want good cheese, you got to have just the right grass. And he even kind of goes on and talks about how even if you don't have the right grasses, you can do certain things specifically with the milk beforehand or with the butter to try to make it better. I mean, it makes it better. It won't make it good, but it makes it better. So he goes like in depth in exactly what you're trying to feed the cows. And he will circle, he ends this section talking about the grasses, and he moves on to the equipment. But he does circle around to that in later parts of the writings here. But he goes on to the furniture of the dairy. So the furniture of the dairy is super important, and I love it where he really starts talking about the dairy itself and the cleanliness aspects of it. So, you know, here we are in the 18th century. They don't have all these great, wonderful concepts about what's going on, what makes milk go sour, or, you know, they haven't discovered, bad little living organisms that come in and attack your milk and make it bad, but they know how to make good butter and what makes bad butter, right? So let's talk about the furniture here. And of course, when we're making butter, the first thing he really wants to talk about are things like the churns and the milk pans. So the first thing we have to do before we make butter is to get the cream off the butter. And he takes a lot of time and kind of, again, circles back to this topic more than once as he goes through the section. But to get the cream to come to the top of your milk, you need some method or specifically some piece of equipment to put your milk in and to separate the cream from the milk. Now, later on in the 19th century, 20th century, they have cream separators that kind of do that more mechanically. But in the 18th century, you basically put the milk in a pan and you wait for it to separate. And the cream is going to come to the top and the regular milk is at the bottom. The main, especially for very large dairy operations, he suggests metal pans that are rectangular, 2 feet by 2 feet or 2 feet by 4 feet, and made of lead. And that makes perfect sense. You want to always have your milk in lead pans. And one of the reasons for it is that it's easy to clean out. And this thick lead material will kind of soak the heat out of it or kind of hold the heat in it depending on what season it is. So it works really well for that. Apparently easy to clean. A little bit of lead probably never hurt anybody, right? They're also, he talks about shallow wooden tubs. He suggests that they should be made of ash, which normally when we see some things like that, they're made out of white oak. But white oak doesn't necessarily, it's hard to tell whether it's really clean. He suggests the ash because the wood, especially as it ages, gets whiter, so you can tell if it's dirty or not. The next kind of pan that he suggests are brass pans. Apparently they've gone out of favor or are going out of favor in the 18th century, but they are earlier. Brass pans were light, they were easy to figure out whether they were clean or not, but they can taint the taste of the milk because you get that kind of brassy or coppery flavor in your milk. So he's not a big fan of those pans. And then the last one that he talks about is using a ceramic bowl, just like these are actually specifically made as milk pans for the separation of the cream and the milk. Some of the other designs, especially the big flat ones made out of lead, would have a hole in the bottom that you would drain away the milk and leave the cream in it. This type, you would basically let that cream come to the top and you would dip it off or possibly pour it off. It probably doesn't work as well, so you have to kind of it's not easy to get that that cream to separate. And he talks about it multiple times how you might take all the cream off and then let it set longer and then come back and get a second kind of whatever cream rises to the top the second time. It's usually not as good and all that kind of good stuff. But the milk pans, really important, and making sure that they're clean. And he even talks about not cleaning them too hard, like in the brass ones. It's like you want to wipe it out, but you don't want to scrub it out because you want that, he doesn't know it, but there's kind of an oxidized layer that you want there to kind of keep the metallic elements from going back into the milk as you use it over and over again. Then, of course, he talks about churns, and we'll pop into a picture here a little bit later, but there are multiple styles of churns. There's the old-fashioned churn, wooden churn like this. This is pretty small. Usually they're a much bigger kind of churn. There's some of them were ceramic, like this guy here. This one isn't very tall, but sometimes you'll see them much taller than this. And then they had barrel churns, which was a fixed barrel with a hole in the middle, and it would have a dasher on the inside. And these were horizontal, and he really he's really a fan of that style because you can do much larger quantities at a time, and they apparently don't have a lot of waste. So one of the problems with these churns is, as you're churning, milk or cream will come out of the top, and then you'll have this, you'll lose some of the cream. There's a waste product, and you can't do it in very large batches. I think he talks about, maybe, really a couple of pounds at a time, and you can't really do anything larger than that. And I think there's a little bit more possible skill, maybe even, which, it's not a lot of skill, okay? They go up and down. How much skill does it take? But there is this sort of, you can't go too fast, and you just have to kind of let it happen. You have to be patient and know the stage at which it's happening, and that changes a lot depending on the time of the year and the temperature. And maybe even, he doesn't really mention it, but the milk probably changes, or the cream to work with, depending on the season. So some seasons the cream is going to turn to butter faster than other seasons. So in the summertime, boom, half hour, you're good. In the wintertime, it might take 2 hours of doing this thing before you get the good butter.
So somebody was wondering, did you get a sense which of the two are more popular, the kind of barrel or this style of guy?
He seems to say that the barrel ones are really starting to happen. No, he's writing in 1750 that they are a fairly new invention, and they're only getting kind of more popular. We look in Diderots and we see them. Those plates are probably done in the 1780s, 1790s, and they seem to be more popular, and there's even a couple of different varieties. But he's kind of implying here in the 1750s that the barrel churn is a fairly new thing, and that it really, in some places, is unknown. But I think we're going to find them get more popular fairly rapidly because they are a good, a major improvement to this vertical churn system. Basically, especially for the fact that you can probably do 3 or 4 times as much, and it's a more natural kind of mechanical thing to do. It's probably easier to change persons. So if you're getting tired of doing the thing, it's easier. One of the things that when you're churning it, you want it to be a continuous kind of motion. So if you stop and you start again, it can really slow the whole process down. So with the rotary churn, it's easy for one person to hand off to the other without stopping the motion and making it a more continuous process versus the other one. I'll take a breath. Do you have anything else to jump in with?
Yes. So somebody was saying that since they probably weren't homogenizing the milk, I'm guessing that it would be more noticeable, the difference in taste from cow to cow and season to season. Did he talk about that?
Well, he's definitely talking about the differences in the milk from season to season. Mm-hmm. And part of that has to do with their diet. They're going to be eating different things. And in fact, we can find that to be true if you're really paying attention. Now, they probably work really hard at it today, but even 20 years ago, you could tell when the cows moved from season to season. Now, all the dairy cows are kept in the same place, and they're fed a very, very consistent and scientific diet. So the milk doesn't really change. But in the past, in my lifetime, the milk was different. So.
And does he talk at all about mixing, either keeping the milk separate or mixing milk between cows? Did he ever touch on that? Okay.
He doesn't mention that.
So
he really does, he kind of deals with the cows as a monolithic block.
Somebody was wondering if they made a butter from sheep or goat's milk, and so it was making me think we'd hear about cheese, but I have not.
He doesn't mention it.
Okay. Maybe they don't have the right fat.
He only mentions cows. Doesn't mean it isn't being done.
Yeah.
He's really working within this fairly small area in Great Britain, the area that is sort of, I think, a little south and possibly a little west of London, sort of the breadbasket there. of Great Britain for this kind of thing. And so it's, he's not talking about other places that much.
And so, hold on just a sec. Let me grab the super chats. So, Eric F. was saying in his super chat, go get John a bowl of cream, live demo.
Yeah.
Somebody else was wondering if you were going to do a live demonstration. That thought did not even occur to us. And alas, I don't have any heavy cream. Because
our heavy cream is so not their cream. I mean, I don't even know what our heavy cream is made out of.
We'd have to talk to our friend who has a cow.
made in some kind of factory in New Jersey. That stuff is weird.
You can still still make it.
It turns into butter, but
it doesn't taste the same. And then there's a super chat from S.J. McGuire. Continue to love the channel and your content, XX.
Thank you.
And then there's a member chat from Jaji, who is member for 60 months.
60 months?
Right?
I didn't even know we'd been doing it for that long.
Many thanks to the tavern and to Townsend's Plus. And then the Speed Styles Tony, how did they store the butter?
Yeah, well, so we'll get to that. So we were talking about churns, so what happens after you churn the butter? So he continues to talk about the other things that we're going to need. Let's see. There were the coolers and the milk pans, basically the same thing. There's the churns, and then he says things like, did I already? Churns, leaden coolers, ashen tubs, pails, brass and earthenware pans. You're going to need sieves, straining cloths, butter trenchers, wooden shaping dishes, so like molds, trays, baskets, weights, and scales. So we talked about the churn itself and the coolers, the tubs, and whatnot. He talks about sieves. So generally he's using a horsehair sieve. I've used them on some of the recipes we've done when we needed a sieve. They would take horsehair and they would make a screen out of it, like window screen, except it's made out of horsehair. And they would use that as a sieve, and they would use that to strain out nasty stuff that you get in your milk. So hairs and gunk, straw and stuff that sticks to cows, right? You want to, we don't even want to know what's in the milk, okay? Just don't ask. You don't want to know. Anyway, stuff is in the milk, you need to straighten it out. And then sometimes they might even use a cloth. So he mentions straining cloths. Butter trenchers. So there's a section here where he's talking about washing out the butter. So when we've churned out our butter, it's not ready to use like that. We have to wash it out. We have to get all the way out of the butter. And if we don't do that, it'll go bad rapidly. So it'll get sour and all that good stuff. So we want it cleaned as much as possible. And somewhere in all this, I've got it highlighted, he talks about using these, he uses the word butter trenchers here. So what does he really mean by that? We think of trenchers as a wooden plate, sometimes a square wooden plate. So apparently that's used in the washing out of the butter, and I'll see if I can't find that section. He really doesn't. He kind of goes all over the place, and sometimes you don't know. Well, I'll get to that section when I can, because I would have to find my way there, and it'd be easier to just talk about what's going on here. So let's talk about here he's talking about the sieve. He says the seventh dairy utensil is the hair straining sieve. This is a very serviceable one and may be of a proportional size to the dairy. A large sieve about 18 inches wide, that's very, very big, and a hoop of 6 inches deep. For by this bigness it readily receives and discharges a large quantity of milk through it, leaving all the hairs and other filth behind. Thanks for telling us that, man. Improvement of milk and cheese. The improvement of milk and cream, milk and cream, not milk and cheese. The improvement of milk and cream is chiefly obtained by cleanliness. Isn't that amazing? Timely skimmings and preserving the cream sweet. Which 3 articles I shall make my observations on. The first, cleanliness, which I here mention as a preliminary one, for being the foundation of making good butter. A company of farmers discoursing on this subject said, an excellent dairymaid, for she always in summer and winter boils the water she washes her dairy things with. Can you imagine actually boiling the water that you wash your things in? It's crazy. Did they know what was going on? No. But they knew that the excellent dairymaid would boil her water and use that to wash her items with. Also, she's doing a large copper that she's heating the water in, using it for scalding pails and other things that you're going to, anything that basically the milk is coming in contact with. Even using soap with white ashes, not using some other things. So washing with very soft sand or soft leather, straw, or hay, and not using some other more things that are scrapey to he talks about it like fuzzing up the wood. If you sand it too hard, right, you'll get like fuzziness, and you don't want that. You want all the things to have a smooth texture to them so they're easy to wash off. And then you might actually, they were fuzzy, they might keep soap in it, and then that would make your
milk.
stuff. Yeah. I keep wanting to find particular things that I know are there, and I know it's later on, so I'll get to hold myself back on some of this. A dairy room being thus kept clean and in good order, the milk should have 12 hours in hot weather before it is skimmed for the first time. Oh yeah, here we go. This is what I wanted. In the next place, no servant man or boy ought to have freeness into the dairy room, because they're apt to take a lick of cream or a cut of butter and leave some dirt of their feet behind them, which turning to dust may damage the milk or cream. Right?
No one in the dairy.
Just don't let these random people in that will be
tracking in the farmyard.
Exactly. Get your dirty feet out of here. There's a lot of time that he spent kind of going back and forth about the issues with temperature, whether it's summertime or wintertime, and the difficulties they have. Everything is sort of changing, and the whole system changes when you go from one to the other. Let me see here. He's talking about the churns, I believe. He's going back into this. And there's something about the speed of churning, even in summer versus winter. So in the wintertime, you're trying to keep that cream warm, so you'll churn a little faster. Isn't that strange? Then in the summertime, when it's already warm enough and you don't need to worry about it, so you go slower in the summer. It's like everything is so sensitive, and you would think like this is simple stuff, right? I mean, but the reality is that some very simple but hard rules for the dairy people make a giant difference.
And it all sounds to me like stuff that really would work best conveyed verbally to your apprentice, right?
Right, yeah. They've got to be there. And
right, and you're like, now,
you're going
when
too
it
fast,
feels just like this, where right, and you can mimic the motions better.
Yeah. In summer, contrary to winter practice, we rinse the barrel churn with cold water just before we put in our cream and begin and continue churning an even flow stroke in order to prevent the beating of the cream into too great a heat. For in sultry hot weather, notwithstanding the churn is so rinsed with cold water, butter has come in less than a half an hour's time, which in frosty weather would not permit in under an hour, 2, or more. Therein lies much of the dairymaid's care and art, for if this churn is turned too fast, the violence of the motion will be apt to overheat the cream, and then the butter comes into an irregularity and is very difficult to gather into lumps and looks pale like grease and has a very rank taste and will not keep. Then there's this whole section about so this was using the barrel churn, and then he goes in and he talks about using the upright churn and the differences between that. A whole section about how butter is going to be done differently depending on like this one, how to make butter from the food of clover, trefoil, raygrass, or lucerne grasses. So all of a sudden, things I'm going to make my butter differently because of the grass I have. Okay. In short, to prevent any rankness or taste in butter made from foreign grasses, the sweeter the utensils are kept, the sooner the butter is churned, the more it is washed in different waters before it is made into pounds, and the more it is beaten between 2 trenchers to clear it of milk, the sweeter will be the butter, and the longer it will keep so. This is one of the few places where he's really talking about the cleaning of butter, and really it's just a little sentence there, but the more it is washed in different waters, so you wash it, you're like doing this thing with water, you drain out that water, you put fresh water in, you do it some more, right? So you're trying to get that whey and any of the, I don't even know how to explain the difference between whey and what's going on with just straight water, right? But you want regular clean water, and you want to keep changing the water. And this, the more it is beaten between 2 trenchers to clear it of milk. And I've seen in some places where they talk about sort of butter paddles. So I don't know what these trenchers are like, and we don't really have pictures of the trenchers necessarily, but you can see sometimes they're like a paddle that is kind of curved so that you can smush I guess you're just continuing to basically smush the butter between these 2 wooden things until, we just have the butter part to work with.
Do you want to pause here
yes.
for a moment and
yes.
talk about clarified butter, since it's kind of an extension of this idea of taking those parts specifically out of the butter?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I have this highlighted anywhere, but he definitely talks about the idea of, in some circumstances and in hotter places, you work with clarified butter instead of regular butter, because it's going to melt anyway. So with clarified butter, we take all those butter solids out. We're basically left with butter oil. That's what's really going on with clarified butter. And it's certainly not unknown in the 18th century, but it is more popular in other parts of the world where it's a hotter climate and they have to deal with this butter. And the only way to keep it from going bad, even with some salting, is to clarify it and take out the milk solids.
And everyone knows that how you do that is you make a bunch of tigers chase each other around a tree.
That's right.
And
Just
then
round
they
and
turn
around.
into clarified butter. That's how it works.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Ivy, for that.
You're welcome.
Little. Every week I try to get the brand new and renewing YouTube members and new Patreon folks. New and renewing YouTube members. Michael Powderly, Andrew, Chris Gibbons, Micah, Lynette Andrews, Tri-State Fan, Ken, Tri-State Fans, Ken. And then Jerome Versligen, Rays Van Bardwick, Possum Sausage, and of course, last week, Mike Judson. Good job, Mike Judson. And then brand new YouTube or Patreon person, Jonathan Lucas. Thank you so much for being very, very direct helpers here on the channel, being part of what we do. Let's look at these. Let's look at these butter pictures
Before we drop
yes.
So Max Darkpool has a super chat. Butter is such a delight. In the 18th century, was it regarded as a pretty standard commodity that wasn't unusual to have on hand, or something special?
I think it was in every household. Everybody's going to have butter. Now, there are different qualities of butter, and poor people might be buying lower quality butter made from that second rising, or there's a whole section where he talks about somebody who makes bad butter and he has a hard time selling the butter to the higgler. New word. Today's a new word. We should have the vocabulary word of the day, a higgler, which is a street seller or vendor.
Oh.
Also known as a higgler. I thought they were specifically for butter because I'd never seen the word before, but it's...
Those street vendors in general.
Right, street vendor in general. When I tried to search higgler, he wanted to give me Hitler. Not very helpful. It's like, did you mean? No, I meant higgler. Hello.
Look harder.
Anyway. Okay, we got that one right. We're good for...
Well...
Yeah. I'm back.
It came in right after. This is a member chat from Macaroni King. Been looking to this segment for some time. A joy.
That's because butter is good.
Uh-huh. Is Higgler Higgler?
Just Higler.
Okay.
So you guys can look it up. Higgler. Okay. So Lauren was looking for still lifes or pictures of butter in the 18th century. And guess what? There are not that many pictures of butter in the 18th century. But I went boop, 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 and I had plenty of pictures of butter. But they all are 17th century. So in the 17th century, they're willing to give us pictures of butter. Still lives are more popular, especially Dutch still lives in this time period. So here we have fruits, and we got some bread and buns, and we got some cheese, and I don't know what that dark brown cheese is, but that's some good stuff. And this raised pie thing, and then of course we got this dish of butter. If we look very closely at that dish of butter, I don't have a blown up picture of it, but it's got grooves in it. Like it's grated, or they have a special butter slicer, or I don't know the answer to this, but it's sort of pre-shaved probably so that it's easier to dispense onto your bread or whatever. Instead of just giving you a big old lump to have to work with, it's already cut, and that's wise. I think that's very wise. Didn't Sydney have that special butter shaver thing? It would like squeeze the butter out into thin little things.
Yeah. Well, it's good. Like that way, if your butter's still a little chilly, right?
Yeah.
And you can kind of like save it cold that way, and then
Right.
when you bring it out your room, it warms up and goes on
Right.
bread faster and better.
There's a little story when it was probably back in the early 90s. Whitney and I went along with the girls, but Ivy or Lauren didn't remember it.
No recollection.
We were at Old Salem when we went to a restaurant, and there in the middle of the table was a giant mountain of butter, like just like 8 inches high, a dish of just butter. That is a restaurant.
I think I was too young to appreciate butter. I'd be excited now. You're like,
Yeah,
look
it's
at
like,
this
whoa.
golden mountain of butter.
Wow. Anyway, here we go. 16th century. We got just some book images of somebody milking the cow and somebody churning butter. And, you know, I immediately sort of rejected this idea that the artist, that the person would just be churning the butter in the courtyard like that, right? Just sort of, hey, I'm going to churn butter out in the open. But, you know, and I thought that the artist was just doing that to connect the idea of the farm together. But later on, we'll see the same thing happening. I'm not sure. I wouldn't just be standing outside churning my butter. 16th century, just the artists here are just crazy. We got, you know, all these meat products here, even a cow's head, which seems a little not the tastiest thing going on here. But if you look at the very right-hand side, you see that little white blob thing. That's butter. And we will see this shape again, this knot of butter. I'm wondering whether it was in that shape because it was in cloth and you kind of wring it out, but I don't have an answer to that. So if there's somebody out there that has an answer about why exactly the butter is in that shape, and we do see this shape in more than one place, then you feel free to jump in there and enlighten everyone, including me. Here we have, again, this whole farmyard situation. We've got a cow. That cow in the foreground is really waiting to be
Right,
milked.
the cow is just...
She is,
I'm sorry, she is just waiting for that guy to be done with the
would you
other
hurry
cow.
up? Then we see the dairy operation here off to the side. And she's got a churn that has a lever operation to it. We do see that popping up. Possibly that it's easier. You can get some different kinds of leverage or whatnot. The person with their hands may be washing butter out in the tubs. You know, smashing between those trenchers. Maybe not. I'm not sure what's on those sawhorses outside of the building. Number one, there's shoes hanging on the wall. I was thinking maybe they were cheeses, but they can't be cheeses. Who would put shoes above their cheeses, right? It's like...
Well, it's Dutch, and so whenever it's a Dutch picture, I'm always wondering if there's some symbolism involved, and that it might not be a practical picture. It might mean something else.
Now, maybe it's showing here that they're not walking in with their shoes on.
That could
See,
be.
there are other shoes there by that window.
Maybe they took them off before they went in to keep it clean and not track in the farmyard.
Maybe. Notice the cows here. When we'll see in other pictures that are in color, that the cows are just like, they're all different colors, and there's brown, there's white ones, there's splotchy, but they all basically look just like generic cows. So I don't know what to tell you about cows. See, these cows, look, there's a gray one, there's a brown one, there's the splotchy white one. They all sort of have the same length horns. It could be, again, that there are very much regional differences, and so he doesn't bother to talk about that because they basically only have one kind of cow.
Could be. It could be that he didn't bother to discuss it because it was difficult. It would be difficult for people to make that change when they could make changes to their fields more easily. But the cows, you're like, you got the cows you got wherever you are regionally, mostly.
We were commenting about the funny hat this guy is wearing. The fact that it's brimless, that would make it easier for milking. So maybe there's specific. This hat is something to dig into a little bit. He's got his standard smock on that farmers would wear. She's probably wearing his hat, his regular hat, on top of her hat. And I don't know why she's looking so wistfully at him, except maybe, he makes good butter. I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe he's milking the cow for her.
Maybe. So it's like, hey, good job. And then the dog with the collar, if you look at that dog, it's got some kind of like crazy big leather.
I interpret it as like one of those little cloth kerchiefs that people
No way!
You don't think
There is no way a person would put a kerchief on a dog in the 18th century. Again, our generic cows in the background, one being milked. We've got the milk pail that looks like a wooden milk pail. We've got people, and there's the milkmaid. She's got a yoke for carrying the milk, which the person in the last frame also had a yoke like this. We've got somebody churning in the background with the old style churn, the vertical churn. And then these are possibly milk storage pans that these kids are playing with, but they're made out of metal, like we would think of milk cans. Well, not today anymore, because milk is kept in giant stainless steel tanks, but 50 and 100 years ago, you would have milk cans like, that we, but even the stainless, for a while we had tin and stainless steel buckets that people would use for transporting milk. We've got a large milk pan that the girl is holding. The boy probably has a yoke. Somebody's cleaning up a tub, which might be being used in this milk situation. And again, she's churning milk outside. Now, is it just for the lighting, composition? Tough to know, but it might be just a standard thing that's happening. Probably only in just situations where you might be using the butter right away. Right.
Maybe. I was wondering if it was because it took quite some time. You can kind of keep your eye on everything else that's happening on your farm while it's going on.
Here is a churn at a historic site, a period one from the late 18th century, and it's redware and has the decorations on it. It's very, very cylindrical and kind of tall. Not an easy thing to throw, although this probably was thrown in two pieces and put together. That would be my interpretation of it. Here we have, this one's out of Diderot's, right?
Yes.
Diderot's Encyclopedia of Trades. We've got someone, we see their quintessential, or let's say their, what would you call it? A perfect, right? Theoretically perfect dairy, right?
I was a little bit like, to me, this didn't look like a dairy at all.
There's no dairy in the universe that looked like that. But this is their theoretical perfect dairy. We even see the benches are made so that they can be cleaned, but if they got milk on them, it would kind of go through and all that good stuff, or it would drain naturally. We've got, there isn't a whole lot of equipment here, right? Just sort of basins, tables to work with, the churns. We've got a small rotary churn and the churn she's using. We've got pictures on the side there of the sieve and sort of how those things are put together. We get to see the dasher on the inside, and I think this one we get to see the dasher a little bit more close up. Notice the barrel stays fixed within its little holder, and then inside those little dashers, sort of like, I don't know, like an ice cream maker.
I thought these little diagrams were very helpful to envision what was going on.
And I haven't seen a bigger version, like in art, of that really big barrel churn. You see its design with all kinds of internal baffles. Now it turns the whole barrel. So instead of the barrel staying still and the thing churns within it, the whole thing rotates. But I don't know how you get the butter out of the dump thing.
I know. Now, the butter does seem to clump up and land somewhere,
But how do we even get into it? Do you have to take it off?
That's the other question I have is, and then how do you clean it when you're done?
Yeah. So there's some real issues with figure 12, 13, 14 about how this works, right? I don't know, guys. I can see the barrel one. Okay, well, how do you clean the barrel one?
That was something else I was wondering. Does it come apart so you can get the butter up, but then clean it?
Right.
Because butter, as we all know, isn't easy to wash off
No,
of stuff.
it isn't easy to wash.
Right? And so I'm very interested to know how they would be doing the cleaning.
Right. So, I don't know.
And even the long ones, right?
Right. Tall ones, yeah.
The tall ones.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you'd clean those either.
Yeah. Lots of hot water, I guess.
You could pour in boiling water.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what they did.
Right. Here we have the butter stamps, and sometimes these go with a sort of a little holder or a little outer shell to them. These obviously didn't, but I mean, you would make a block of butter and then stamp it. Why? Identify it?
I was wondering. I didn't look up to see if some of it might have just been, so it was kind of like a mark maybe for your farm. You're like, see, this is the star butter, and they have really good butter, and whether it was just for decorative reasons, because they did, like they do it with cookies, like they have cookie molds, and whether it's just for the fun of it.
Here is now this is probably Dutch, isn't it? 19th century
Yes,
or 18th
it's
century?
from the Rijksmuseum.
Rijksmuseum, okay. Here we have this butter blob. Remember that really, really early 17th century picture? And here we have this butter thing again.
Kind of a cone.
Much later. So maybe it's particularly a cultural thing, and it's Dutch. I don't know.
Could be.
Here we have another picture with cheese, and this is a barrel that is all full of butter. Now, he specifically talks about storing butter in this, and he says if it's when you're having larger quantities of butter, you don't have any choice but to store it in something like a big barrel, right? And you would have, if it's going to be used right away, which in a barrel probably not, then it has to be salted. And so he talks about, the salting of butter, and you put in like butter, you put in a little layer of salt, and you put in butter, and then you put in a layer of salt, and you keep doing that, just like you would do salted meats. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes, depending on the vessel, you would put a layer of brine on top of that, seal out the air and whatnot. We have some butter dishes from the time period. Very, very beautiful butter dishes. I don't know why anybody would connect a turtle with butter, but I mean, that was the shape. This one's.
I really like this one.
Yeah, this one's nice. You want to keep your butter in your thing. This is a picture of the butter market. So there were places that, now this isn't the butter market going on. This is the location of the butter market. This is like a fair or some kind of festival going on at the location of the butter market. It was more than likely that the butter market would happen. Like cheese markets, it would be a particular day of the week, and the farmers would bring in their butter, probably during the morning,
right?
Not at night. But here we see that.
I happen to love this picture, so I thought I'd share it. But
you don't see a lot of night pictures.
You don't see a lot of. Yeah, and this is later. This is like probably between 1850 and 1900 for this particular picture. But I did, and this is Amsterdam, and they had a lot of different types of markets in Amsterdam where they would have one specific area, and that's where that particular type of market would be.
This is painting from the 19th century.
Again, this doesn't have a lot to do with butter. I just really liked this picture and wanted to share it.
But it's for a story that's happening in the 18th century about this sculptor who, as a child, sculpts a butter lion.
Yes.
So this is a butter lion. Did it happen?
I think it's a fable. I think that this is a fictionalization of this sculptor's. I believe he was kind of picked to be an apprentice around this time. And so this story, I think, is what they fictionalized to have that happen. But I thought it was fun to see a picture from the 19th century where they're capturing their 1760s. And so, the art style feels 19th century, but you're like, oh, no, they got breeches on, so.
Right. And I want a butter lion.
Yes.
And then we're back. So that was our butter. Now let me see if I can find some interesting stuff here.
So somebody was wondering if maybe they were churning outside because the sunlight was helpful in keeping their butter clean.
Maybe. I'm not gonna.
I don't know, because we haven't even run across anyone mentioning where they were churning. Just a lot of pictures of people doing it.
Right. Except the whole idea that you want it to be clean. Artifices sometimes made use of to expedite the churning of butter. And then it says something like, he talks about provoking the dairymaid. It is never so good as when the cream is churned into butter by only a regular and timely working of the churn. For if hot water, hot milk, or hot cream is added to the cream while it is being churned, it is a sort of a violence used upon its true nature. You don't want to do that. The same when pieces of money or any other thing is put into the churn for the same purpose. So sometimes you would put a copper coin, or I think more specifically a silver coin, into the churn to have a reaction and have the butter happen better. Don't ask me about that. So here's a little section where he's talking about somebody making butter, and this farmer makes altogether the use of a barrel churn, and one of the largest sort, because he keeps 20 cows and generally churns 6 dozen pounds of butter at a time by turning its 2 handles with 2 men's labor. So that is like, what is 6 dozen pounds of butter at a time? 72 pounds of butter in one of those butter churns at a time. 2 people turning the cranks on it. And this is a farm that has just 20 cows. So we can get some concepts of sort of the how productive their farms were, how big they were. How a neat housewife has the sweetest butter. She kept 2 large milk cows, always on natural grass or hay. During all the summertime, she used to skim every meal's milk, that is to say, she skimmed twice a day and got 3 or 4 pints of cream each time, which she boiled in a skillet that she washed but not scoured, for if scoured her brass skillet, it would cause the milk or the cream to taste it. And as she churned but twice a week, she thus kept her cream sweet in the hottest weather. They're doing a pasteurization technique on this cream to make it so that it doesn't go bad in the summertime, which I thought was very interesting. And in other places, he talks about making sure it doesn't boil, but that it just gets so hot that you can barely put your finger in it. Don't boil it; that'll go bad, right? So they were using a lot of techniques here that we would recognize. Again, they don't know exactly why the cream stays good when they bring it up to this particular temperature, but not boil it. But they're doing that so that she can just do the butter work twice a week instead of having to do it all the time and make tiny little batches. You want to jump in?
So a couple different people have mentioned it. I have never seen one, but at state fairs they still have butter statues. And some of them are giant, like life size at the New York State Fair.
Wow.
We don't have any butter. I've never seen one at our state fair. So.
Well,
that sounds great.
We learn something new every day. He has sections about, I wanted to get to this, about trying to keep your milk pans from cracking. So there's a couple of different techniques he talks about. One of them coating them with butter on the outside, and one of them like preheating them. But the Welsh way of coloring butter Several dairy people in Wales take care to sow that sort of marigold seed that produces double flowers. And as these in a rich earth and warm situation will grow almost throughout a mild winter, they seldom want wherewithal to color their butter. In order thereto, they bruise the flowers in a mortar and then put them in a rag to squeeze out their juice amongst the butter, which on being worked in will give it a fine yellow color and a wholesome quality. So they are dyeing their butter, sometimes with marigold and sometimes with saffron.
Somebody was wondering earlier whether they ever added, whether you ran across them adding anything for flavor, like rosemary.
There is rosemary mentioned in here someplace. It was only kind of mentioned in a side thing, but here we've got them coloring it, and we do have the occasional mention, at least one mention, of doing that. It talks about potting butter, where we are doing it in a family situation where you have a much smaller vessel. You'll put butter in it and cover it up with brine and lightly, but that's really only for small kind of situations.
You going to tell them about the bog butter?
Yeah, it's been showing up in my Facebook feed, the bog butter, some places, especially Ireland and other places, possibly in Europe, where they would store giant blocks of butter basically in the bogs. And then, like 500 years later, somebody finds this 50-pound block of butter. Like, okay. And they taste it, and it's still good.
It's fine. And something like they were purposefully fermenting it.
Yeah.
That's what they were going for.
Yeah, there's a mention of particularly of fermented butter too. Not for the English, but for the Irish.
I have a super chat here. This is from Quicksilver Tears. Thank you for bringing this content to us. We have enjoyed years of fun videos. Your live vids are the only live content I have found enjoyable.
Well,
Excellent.
I know this is weird, right? I mean, I don't know. Does anybody else do a live stream quite like we do it? No, I don't know. Maybe that's the reason why it is what it is, right? We just kind of. I did want to mention. I'm going to go ahead and stop here with butter because we're basically at our, we are at our time limit. I will put another members post up tonight or tomorrow with another invite link to Discord. If you're interested in connecting with the Discord community of folks that are members and Patreon folks, I'll put up a fresh Discord join link for that. So, and if you're like, what's Discord? Don't worry about it. Just ignore that. But it is just one of those places where you can kind of private community where people can chat about stuff that we do here on the channel. So how did it turn out? Who's number one on the leaderboard? Do we know anything about it? We don't know anything about it. I don't know.
No. There was.
Oh, look at that.
Can we see it? Oh look, there it is. Yes, we can see it.
Good job, Ivy. I want to thank everyone for being here in the butter chat. Somebody said, "Where's the live butter?" I don't have any butter.
See, I can't believe we didn't even think about the idea of actually making butter live.
I will say that you if you get a chance to try to make your own butter, you should do that. Also, that butter is important. Get some
Kerrygold.
Get some Kerrygold or some of those other,
European.
Try out
stuff.
some of those fancy European butters,
Yeah.
and just try it. Just try it. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? It could change your life. I'm just saying. No. There are times when any old butter will do, but then there are other times when it's like, no, I want the very best butter, and wow, it makes a number 3. You're number 3. It makes the best butter. It can make nutmeg butter. I don't know about that.
Surely you could.
I mean, you could.
I would probably do a mixed warm spices butter, cinnamon, nutmeg.
Honey butter.
Ginger.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay. No butter in that mug. I want you guys to have a very, very fun weekend. We're supposed to have like thunderstorms tomorrow, so I don't know what we're going to do. But I want you to have a fun weekend. It has been wonderful. Cholesterol is good for you. It's been a wonderful day here in the Nutmeg Tavern, and it's always enjoyable to come in and chat, and it's always, and you keep me on my toes, right? So it's like every week, it's like, what are we going to talk about this week? And so it's like I have to dig in and find some, or Lauren finds great information or pictures or whatever. And so we are always sort of refreshing ourselves on, what's interesting, what neat things are happening in the 18th century, how it connects with us today, and how fun and strange, or very, very similar, right? Nothing's changed. Sometimes that's what we find out. But I want to thank everyone for being here in the chat, for being so amazingly supportive of what we do. Again, have a tremendous weekend, and thank you for watching.